Welcome, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of the DNVR Draft, our fourth edition of the draft today, and we've got a pinch hitter coming in. Andre Simone had a little bit of technical errors, but we have another person who is very well versed in the NFL draft. So with me today, special guest, AJ Hafley, and then, of course, the usual cast of characters, Andrew Mason, Henry Chisholm, Zach Stevens, and of course, I'm Ryan Koenigsberg. So let's jump right into the draft. And the first pick goes to our special guest, Mr. AJ Hafley.
Okay, cool. I don't know how in depth I need to get on this one or what you guys really want on this, but I think it is just going to be Joe Burrow.
Yep.
And we can move on.
Yeah, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point, unless there's a crazy trade or the Bengals lose their mind and decide to go after someone like Herbert or something. But I think at this point it's pretty well set in stone that it's going to be Joe Burrow.
There's no reason to have smokescreen season with the number one pick right now, and everything points to Burrow. So, yep, no doubt.
Okay, Hank?
All right. With the second pick, the Redskins are going to take Chase Young.
Another pretty much no-brainer. There's a couple different ways I guess they could screw this up, but they kind of have a quarterback. They've got a need at edge. Everyone could use Chase Young. Easy pick. All right, that leaves me with the Lions, and this one's an interesting one. It's gone a couple different ways during this time, but I think they probably, once again, don't really overthink this. They have a need here. They go ahead and take Jeff Okudah.
Well, the last one we did, Jeff Okudah slid all the way to 9. There's no sliding here with Okudah. He's off the board at 3.
Yes, Okudah Matata.
Back-to-back Buckeyes there from an outstanding defense. And now for the New York Giants, I'm on the clock, and you could go offensive line here and fill a need, but at the same time, it's a defense that is in need of playmakers. The linebacker position is, in general, subpar. Somebody like Isaiah Simmons changes the trajectory of the Giants' defense. They can move him all around. So he's going to be the Giants' pick number 4 overall. And so much for him falling and being somebody maybe the Broncos could rearrange their plans to try to trade up for. But Isaiah Simmons, defensively, he's kind of a unicorn in this draft, and the Giants need that kind of impact player on that side of the ball.
This has kind of been essentially chalk so far, you had Burrow go, obviously, and then the next 3 picks have been really the 3 best non-quarterbacks in the draft.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of that quarterback, where the Dolphins are on the clock here, and boy, Tua is sitting there. How can I, of all people, pass on Tua? And the Dolphins certainly can't pass on him. With the 5th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select Tua Tagovailoa. Easy choice. They didn't even have to tank for Tua. They let him slide to him at 5, and boy, are they the happiest team right now.
They are elated for sure. Their plan for a long time finally comes to fruition. All right, that takes us to 6.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know that the conventional wisdom is that they just sit tight and the Chargers just take the next quarterback on the board. But I think if Tua's gone, I really have a hard time believing that they're going to take Justin Herbert, right?
Okay.
There's just something about it. I just don't want to do it. I don't feel good about it. So I think this is probably where I'm gonna shake things up here, and I'm gonna take one of the offensive linemen instead.
Ooh, right. Who you going with?
I'm gonna go with just my personal favorite, and I'm gonna take Tristan Wirfs.
Okay, Tristan Wirfs.
You know what?
I was reading Andre's film room or not a film room, but he did a breakdown that included film of the whole offensive tackle class, and I think it's hard to come away from reading that without Wirfs being your favorite. All of them, he did a really good job of breaking down, but I just watched that, and I'm with you. The one concern there is just that he did spend most of his time at right tackle, but he's such an athlete that it shouldn't really matter.
It's not one of those things that bothers me anymore. The tackle talent in the league is in the position that it is now, that you need them both, and there are not 64 quality tackles.
Nope,
to be
not
had.
even close.
So every team can't just easily scoop one up. So when you have a chance to get one of them left, right, whatever they want to do with them in LA is fine. But I think that building infrastructure around a young quarterback, which they could go with the second round route if they wanted, whatever they want to do there. But I'm more comfortable building infrastructure to drop a young quarterback in than a young quarterback and saying, save us.
Fair enough.
All right. Now number 7, the Panthers are going to take Derek Brown. They need some help in the front 7. I think it's kind of tempting to go to the secondary at this pick, but just the way the board's falling with Derek Brown there, it just makes a lot of sense for the Panthers.
And I believe he's gone there every draft but one, where, of course, he fell to the Broncos in our last draft, but he really is a top 10 guy. So it would be a surprise for him to fall much further than this.
All right, now I get to make the selection for my Cardinals.
Boy, how long have you been looking forward for this pick?
Since we started this. And you know what? This is an interesting place here. And we had a conversation today on the DNVR Broncos podcast that really piqued my interest. Obviously, people haven't heard that yet, so this is a little spoiler alert. But once we had that conversation, I just couldn't get my mind off this. And I think that if there's someone who's going to make this move, it's Cliff Kingsbury to just bolster this offense. So after getting DeAndre Hopkins, they still double down on wide receiver again here and take CeeDee Lamb.
Ooh, and now why CD as opposed to potentially bringing the speed along with Ruggs?
Well, they have speed. Obviously, it's not in their main. You have speed in Christian Kirk. You have speed in Andy Isabella. You have speed even in Damiere Byrd, I believe, is still on the roster there. So I think they go with a guy who is really explosive here, and the combination of him and Hopkins would be terrifying when you add in Christian Kirk as well.
Wow, and that might actually affect what the Jaguars do at number 9, because while White...
Uh-oh. Lost Mace there.
I was dying to know how it affected it.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
There he is.
All right. Well, what I was saying is that the wide receiver is not a primary need for the Jaguars at number 9, but it's something that's down the list if you don't go too far. So seeing CeeDee Lamb off the board, number 8, might change things just a little bit. But at the same time, Jaguars, you look at what they're missing right now. They seem committed to Gardner Minshew for at least one more year. So I don't think Justin Herbert being available changes things here. And still in a stare down with Yannick Ngakoue on the defensive line. So they need help. Javon Kinlaw, interior pass rusher, still on the board. I'm going Kinlaw, number 9 to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right.
Ooh, and man, this makes it very interesting. If Justin Herbert's not off the board by this pick, then this is bad news for the Broncos, because now the teams that are left from the Browns at number 10 to the Broncos, none of them are going to take a quarterback. That means more offensive linemen, more wide receivers, more non-quarterback guys could very well go, of course, unless there's a trade up.
Bingo. And I think if we were dealing with a real draft here, then Justin Herbert falling to number 10, even Justin Herbert falling to number 8, I think that's where you'd see teams like the Cardinals and Jaguars and Browns, their phone lines heating up with trade offers.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And someone in the comment section just asked what they thought, what we thought of the idea of trading up for 10 with the Browns, as has been suggested today. I think it could be a great situation. In this one, you're not going to be able to match the offer of someone who is trying to bang down the door to get a quarterback.
Yeah, no, exactly. And with the 10th overall pick, the Cleveland Browns don't need to worry about their quarterback situation, but they do need to worry about protecting their quarterback. And that's why they're going to go with the guy that can protect him right away. And that is Andrew Thomas is going off the board. He's probably the safest option for tackle. And that's what they need right now is safety with the Browns. They need a little bit of stability with everything that always is going on with the Browns. So Andrew Thomas gone to Cleveland.
All right. Starting to be a little run on the guys the Broncos like.
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna ruin some of that too, because with the Jets at 11, I'm building infrastructure around a young quarterback that already exists. And even though I know they need wide receiver help, there's wide receiver help for days in this draft, in rounds beyond the first one, and that's not true of tackles. So I'm taking Mekhi Becton here.
All right. Mekhi Becton off the board, and the comment section breathes a sigh of relief because they were already expecting Becton to fall to the Broncos again. I mean, I think, you know what, you're right about what the Jets should be doing there. When you have the young quarterback in place, and this is a conversation that can be had with the Broncos as well, you know, especially for the Jets who have seen a season of what happens when you don't protect your young quarterback, they have to address that need right there.
Yeah, and I like of the two that are left, I like Becton more.
As do I.
All right, at number 12, the Raiders are they're going to take C.J. Henderson, the cornerback from Florida. And this is another tough one. You know, they could have gone receiver. I think that's 50-50 right there. And, you know, there's the storyline about the Raiders always going after the fast receivers. You still have Henry Ruggs on the board, but instead they're taking the fast cornerback. They're in the same division as Tyreek Hill. They want somebody who can match up with him and take him away. C.J. Henderson could turn out to be that guy.
Wow. And everyone behind them high-fiving in the war room right now. The Raiders raided once again. All is right in the world.
Yeah, this is the one time where the entire NFL isn't laughing at them for taking the speed guy wide receiver in the first round. Everyone behind them is thrilled.
They absolutely are. And one of these teams is the 49ers, who are probably, again, entertaining trade backs here. I think everyone, based on the way the board has fallen to this point, are entertaining a trade back. But this is a team who values speed quite a bit. They are losing it at the wide receiver position. They have a chance to address it here. It's one of the places that they probably wanted to get to this position in the first place, and they just can't help themselves to get a real field stretcher here, and they select Henry Ruggs.
Danger for Kyle Shanahan with this pick. I mean, you get the fastest guy in the draft to add to Jimmy Garoppolo. Boy, that's they're thrilled about this pick, and with Henry Ruggs sliding to them.
I love this in the comment section after Hank just got blasted in the last draft for not selecting Henry Ruggs. Everyone's giving him a round of applause for that pick from the Raiders there.
Oh, wow.
They're really proud of you, Hank.
Yeah, I did my part this time.
All right, and that leaves
Mace. Your Tampa Bay Bucks are on the clock.
Yes, the Bucks are on the clock, and they are pretty happy with how this fell because while 3 tackles are off the board, that leaves one more of those widely perceived top 4 to be available. Somebody who can step in, start right away, and build a wall to protect Tom Brady, and that's Jedrick Wills from Alabama going to the Bucks with the 14th overall selection. Tackle it's a bit of a mess in Tampa Bay right now. The interior offensive line in much better shape, but they've got to make sure those flanks are sound and ready to protect TB12 coming down there. They've got plenty of pass catching targets, so even though maybe Jerry Jeudy would be tempting there to give Tom Brady another target with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, Cameron Brate, some trade rumors about O.J. Howard, but still, they go pretty deep in terms of pass catchers. They need somebody on the offensive line. So they are thrilled that Jedrick Wills is still on the board.
And before we go to the Broncos, we have a couple requests for a recap of how we got to this point. So I'll go quick. 1, Joe Burrow to the Bengals. 2 to the Redskins, Chase Young. 3 to the Lions, Jeff Okudah. 4 to the Giants, Isaiah Simmons. 5 to the Dolphins, Tua. 6 to the Chargers, Tristan Wirfs. 7 to the Panthers, Derek Brown. 8 to the Cardinals, CeeDee Lamb. 9 to the Jaguars, Javon Kinlaw. 10 to the Browns, Andrew Thomas. 11 to the Jets, Mekhi Becton. 12 to the Raiders is CJ Henderson. 13 to the 49ers, Henry Ruggs. And then, of course, the pick Mace just made. 14 to the Buccaneers, Jedrick Wills. Left on the board for Mr. Zach. Obviously, Justin Herbert. Maybe John Elway's tempted. Jerry Jeudy, Chason, McKinney, Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Swift. But I think I have a feeling where Mr. Zach is going with this pick.
Well, Justin Herbert is on the board, and John Elway is thrilled, guys. He never thought that Justin Herbert would be on the board, but he also never thought that Jerry Jeudy would be on the board. No one is happier with the Oakland Raiders choosing C.J. Henderson than John Elway, because if the Raiders go with Ruggs or Jeudy, then boy, right now, the Broncos are hosed. I mean, maybe Justin Herbert is in play with this pick if all of the top tackles and wide receivers are gone, but no need to worry. The Denver Broncos and John Elway draft their first Alabama player in the first round, and they do it with Jerry Jeudy. Whew, pair him up with Courtland Sutton. That is dangerous.
Do you think the parade should start in the same place it started the last time, or should they move the parade route this time?
You got to do the same thing. Keep with tradition.
This is just a dream scenario for the Broncos, and it's funny because, in my opinion, it's not all that wild. And on the podcast today, I talked about the Broncos' best friends, and the Broncos' best friends include a guy like C.J. Henderson. And as you saw here, all it took was C.J. Henderson going off the board a little earlier than we expected. Everything else was pretty chalky from that top 15, but you get C.J. Henderson off the board, and that gives you a chance to have a guy like Jerry Jeudy fall to the Broncos. So best friend C.J. Henderson gets a steak dinner at Elway's and maybe like a nice Christmas card, and the Broncos get Jerry Jeudy.
There is one thing, though. If it did work out like this and Justin Herbert was on the board at 15 and there were teams targeting him, usually teams, when they trade up in round 1 for a quarterback, they're willing to give more in draft capital than they would be for another player. There's a history of this over the last 5 years with getting, frankly, ridiculous amounts of draft capital to move up and take a quarterback in that spot. So John Elway's phone might be ringing, and let's say not in this scenario, but let's say Miami is the team that passed on a quarterback early, and they like Justin Herbert. There could be scenarios where Herbert, if somehow he fell to 15, or if Tua Tagovailoa fell to 15, to where the Broncos could get more than they ever imagined by trading down a few picks.
But goodness, I do it if Jerry Jeudy's gone, and if it is that scenario where there's no tackles or wide receivers, then you absolutely trade back and get that extra value. But if Jerry Jeudy's there, I don't care what the value is to me. I mean, you didn't have to trade an additional second-round pick in order to move up to get Jerry Jeudy. He's just sitting there for you. Nope, I'm not going to answer the phone.
AJ, I want to ask you real quick, because based on your picks, I think you made it clear that you think the value at wide receiver is further down in this draft. What would you have done if you were the Broncos in that scenario?
I would have done the same thing I did with most of my other picks, and I would have taken a tackle.
So you would have gone Josh Jones?
I would have.
Okay, interesting.
I love Jerry Jeudy. But You have to protect your quarterback, man. You just have to. And there are so many wide receiver prospects in this draft class that you can find a first round caliber talent in the middle of the second round because it's just such a deep class. It's an all-time historic wide receiver class. You have to take advantage of that.
Well,
and you need to protect your quarterback.
Well, and I feel similarly to an extent with you with that, AJ, is if there is an equal tackle and wide receiver for the Broncos, or even if it's close and the tackle's maybe just a little worse than the wide receiver, I'm going tackle because I totally agree that you got to protect the quarterback. You got to protect Drew Lock. But in this case, where it falls, where the best receivers on the board, as opposed to the, fifth tackle, I think there's some separation. It's some significant separation where I just can't get over that. But I understand where you're coming from.
I think in a scenario where we're not allowing where we're not allowing trades and things makes this hard because I don't think Justin Herbert, somebody would have gone there. And I think that if Denver was in this position, that trading down would have been ideal for them.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this scenario is that Justin Herbert stayed on the board, and the Broncos still got a really good player. We assume that someone probably would have traded up above the Broncos to get Judy starting all the way, or to get Herbert starting all the way at like 10 at the latest, maybe. But you kind of, we talk about those best friends. Justin Herbert is one of them. We kind of just expect him to go. Jordan Love is another one of those guys who could really help the Broncos out in this situation. So I'm actually kind of surprised the way this fell, where you only had two quarterbacks go. The Broncos still end up getting a top 3 wide receiver in everyone's mind, a top 1 wide receiver in some of our minds on this stream right here. So this was an interesting board the way it fell.
I really like that this happened, though, because it's not the craziest thing for a quarterback to fall. I mean, Aaron Rodgers fell. Drew Lock fell last year. Drew Lock fell way more than any of us could have ever expected. So I do like that we had at least one scenario where something like this happened.
But the question is, which quarterback is more likely to fall in reality? Is it Justin Herbert or is it Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, for the
record,
Broncos,
it's probably Tua.
I would not have taken Tua with the Chargers because the uncertainty with the injuries and not being able to get medical rechecks. You're not investing a top 10 pick on a guy that you're hoping and praying on and can't do your homework on. And I think that the situation that the world is in right now is going to lead to an overly conservative draft day where guys with major injury red flags don't get the same leap of faith from an organization like they would previously. I think Tua is realistically the guy that slides and not Herbert.
Well, and it doesn't from our perspective, it doesn't matter who falls. If one of those quarterbacks falls, it creates a similar situation.
Yep.
But if you're putting money down, I think it's more likely that Tua falls than Justin Herbert, because it's possible that the Dolphins may have seen enough that they liked Justin Herbert if they don't have confidence in Tua's hip to where Herbert is their pick at number 5.
They are going to regret that. I'll tell you
Mistake.
what.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
I think that when you look at this, there are a couple of indicators that you can find that show that things are going well for the Broncos. So it's whether that third quarterback goes, and sometimes if that fourth quarterback goes, then things are going well. As soon as you have CJ Henderson go, a second cornerback, or if somebody even had jumped up and taken a third cornerback in Jeff Gladney or Christian Fulton, you have the second interior defensive line guy with Javon Kinlaw. And so when you have those guys who are kind of changing what will actually be available at 15 going, that's when you start to get excited if you're a Broncos fan, I think.
Totally. Well, this was another fun edition. Thank you, guys. Thank you to AJ. I'm glad we got a different perspective on here in the picks. And we will be back doing another one of these on Tuesday for our final one before the official draft begins. Once again, a thank you to MSU Denver. Go to msudenver.edu/online. Check out all they have to offer. They are helping us bring to you all this draft coverage. So, with that being said, we thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.